You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV Network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Gene. Johnson.
From the AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com, and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AFTERBUZZ TV's Falling Skies After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's Falling Skies After Show.
Welcome, everybody. Bing is for doing. We're here doing episode 7 of season 3, of course, for Falling Skies, called The Pickett Line, aptly named. I am your host, Phil Svitek, joined alongside my other host.
That's me.
That is you.
That's me, Nando Velasquez. Hello, everybody.
Hello, Nando. Very, very excited to be here. You know, the follow-up episode to what was a very good episode.
Yeah.
And the Mason family is alone, but we'll get to them in a bit. Finally, we figure out who the mole is. But before we even talk about the mole, we have to talk about the president is still alive.
What a great reveal.
I know.
Yeah. Well, you know, you spend all this money on Stephen Collins. You'd have to get him for more than one episode, I would think, you know?
Yeah, that's
As the president.
True.
Yeah. So the president, nice little surprise. Stephen Collins, President Hathaway, survived that attack, that air attack. Then his plane went down with him and
Cochise. It serves
Cochise.
two purposes. Now we get to really kind of, it would bring trust to the Volm.
Yeah.
You know, because the fact that he would even consider saving him, or that he, did this miraculous feat to save the president, is a sign of respect to the human race.
Absolutely.
So, congratulations, Cochise, for accomplishing that. I mean, but ironically enough, there's too much turmoil to really even have that sink in.
What a time for him to come back.
Yeah.
And Cochise as well. Although another welcome addition, I'm kind of glad to see Cochise back too.
I'm very glad to see. But there's two parts to it. It's funny how it's funny seeing the dynamic of how much as more and more information about this weapon comes out, how much in sync the president and Tom really were, and how much Marina's agenda doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly.
Yes and no.
Yes and no. I mean, Marina is a different kind of president, but obviously there's been a lot of I don't know if you want to call it like a red herring almost, but there's a lot of been iffy decisions that she's made. It's made everybody question, and you could still see it in this episode. People are still questioning Marina's motives.
Yeah. Whether
they are her own, just because she is very because she's a control freak, because she wants to take power, or whether there's something else there, whether she's not playing on the right team.
Well, she did have a great moment with the president of, when they're talking about the senator and how she was,
the senator called her feisty, I believe.
Feisty.
Yes, that she was very feisty.
And, they had that nice moment to kind of where they both knew him, and yet, okay, now this is another person that's dead that they both knew, so they bonded over that.
Yeah.
Which I think showed the fact that, yes, she is a competent leader and she should be trusted.
Before the big reveal at the end of the episode, I think we definitely got to see a better side of her. We got to see her point of view a little bit more.
I agree. I 100% agree. And yet, it is funny how much her power was taken away, and how much, again, in the dark she really was about this Volm weapon, I mean,
yeah.
She lied to Kadar about, okay, Tom ordered to do this. Actually, no, it's just me because I want to know. And now we finally figure out why it needs all that excess power, which is to basically destroy itself.
Pretty much, just to save everybody in the end, but
yeah.
There's risks involved. So and the reason why it was kept secret was not to panic everybody else, to realize exactly how dangerous this weapon is and how it could backfire.
But what do you think of the notion that Tom didn't tell her? I mean, if he's really going to leave her in charge, he should have told her, or was it enough to just give her all the documents away.
Well, I would assume by Tom not telling her, it also meant Tom didn't fully trust her. She's not family. She's not second mass, which it keeps going back to family. Then again, it's not like he would go out and tell Pope and Pope second mass or even Weaver. But yeah, it was a very big secret with him and Cochise. And I guess really the only three people who seemed to know were Cochise, Tom, and Hathaway now. Those were the only three at the time that knew. So it just shows how secretive this plan was, that he couldn't even tell his successor about this.
Oh, I wonder what was in the documents that he handed over, if the truth was in fact within that.
Yeah, it's a good question. I
mean, I imagine not, because if he did hand over those kind of documents,
she seems like the kind of person that would have read them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think she would have missed that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, interesting dynamic. Kind of, you want to talk about kind of Pope real fast, and how he's being affected by her.
I love the Pope line. It's just really, really funny to see how in control Pope has been in Charleston, having his own little Pope down, and you hear him talking about all the credits he's got, but what are you going to do once you leave Charleston with credits? Nothing really. And then to come and see that his world is about to be turned upside down because he's about to have his whole town moved because of Marina's
plan.
Yeah, because of Marina's plan. Excuse me, because of Marina's plan, and moving his little place of operations, getting rid of the bar to make room for new people coming in, new refugees possibly coming in or whatever. So typical Pope, thinking really, being really upset, and I have to say he's a bit selfish. So thinking about himself, convinces everyone to do a worker slowdown. At probably, again, one of the worst times. They're a couple of weeks away from this grid being up, and the Volm weapon has to be ready, and everyone's just not working. It's like a typical little strike, like Norma Ray type action, although for really selfish reasons, just to keep Pope standing in his bar and to keep him living where he's at. Yeah,
and it's scary to think how many people he actually had amassed.
Yeah.
At his meeting.
And to be fair, there are some points that he made that were valid. There are some points.
Like
they
what?
do need, well, I think the community needs morale, and there's nothing better that speaks morale to those kinds of to the kinds of people he's with than alcohol. Yeah, than a bar, to socialize, to drink, to not have to think about their problems, to a communal, community center of sorts. It's not your typical community center, but you know what I mean. It's a community for these people who are working.
But again, that's
off.
where you should spread the propaganda of like what we're doing is great.
Yeah.
And, keep up the good work.
And that's probably why Pope's probably the wrong person to run this bar, because he has a completely different opinion over the government that's over there. And when Tom was in charge, and now of course Marina as well. And even Weaver. I mean, he'll butt heads with Weaver, but you notice that they could at least make up more or less, or they acknowledge each other fairly well, even though Weaver is totally willing to arrest Pope for disorderly conduct and general disobedience. I believe something like that. General disobedience and general unruliness, I think it was. Yeah, civil disobedience.
Now, what about their talk, in the, quote, jail cell, when he says, Tom told me a long time ago, we, in order to build this society, we need people like you.
Yeah. I think it's coming from a history professor, a history of American history professor. I think that's a very valid point. America's a democracy. I don't think a professor of American history could really talk about battles and wars and epic events in history without saying that, the First Amendment is the right to free speech. Yeah. And you can't just shut someone down. And everyone, even Pope, has a valuable opinion. And he,
But I think in that speech with Weaver, Weaver's kind of egging him on more so than I think the words will eventually turn into action, as they must.
Yeah.
And especially now, Weaver's not happy with what's going on with that weapon. So it's right after he finds out the information that he does. So what does that mean that Pope could possibly do? What benefit does he have, if all goes awry?
Well, I think they're family, and I think when it comes down to it, they both can align to certain things. And Weaver not trusting Marina and not trusting that Volm weapon, I mean, that goes to show you that, he's kind of telling Pope, look, you're not, you have a very different opinion. And, but there's a possibility you could be right. So just watch your back. I mean, he literally said, watch your back in case there's a knife attached to it. And he said same thing. They both have that mutual respect for each other. So I do see that, Weaver's, there's Weaver and Pope do have an understanding about each other. They might not agree with each other. I mean, Weaver might feel like he's babysitting Pope sometimes or having to slap him every now and then. But there still is some mutual respect. And again, Weaver has his doubts. Weaver's number one man was Tom, and Tom is gone. So this is a world where Weaver doesn't know who to trust necessarily. So who is he going to come back to? Someone like Pope.
Well, it's I want to talk about because it was interesting. We got and we'll talk about from the Mason side of it. But the fact that Pope did bring up like, hey, Tom Mason's a smart guy. He knows when to leave a sinking ship.
Yeah. And
that was being brought up with the Masons, which we'll talk about again from their perspective. But from Pope's perspective, why is Charleston falling so bad?
Well, from Pope's perspective, it's just all going to hell anyway because, the way Pope likes to live is every man for himself. And he doesn't like to fall in line with organization, so to speak, I think. So this is just my thoughts on him. He doesn't like anything that he can't control. And especially right now that Marino is trying to take the bar away and move everything out.
But is it is it the fact that they're working pretty much with the Volm without any information? Like what I think
it's a lot of that. I think it's all of that too. Yeah.
I think he makes a great argument in that sense, but sometimes and he's right in the sense that, in order to build, I think the true idea of democracy, at least in Socrates' thinking, is that everyone needs the same amount of information in order to make an opinion.
That's true.
As it stands, I mean, America, at the end of the day, right now, is a representative democracy. It's not a true democracy.
But really, at the same time, Pope having the same amount of information as everyone else is not necessarily a good thing sometimes because...
No, but again, well, that's why it's an idealistic view of what a true democracy is. And do you really trust Pope with this information? Like, how do we do that? And, can that actually exist? Or are we just going to lie? And really, it's tyranny.
Yeah. It would be really interesting if, I know I made this prediction a while ago, if Pope ended up like running for president against Tom back then. I said it would be really interesting to see how Pope would handle a lot of this news if he somehow was ever an elected official in this world. Because there are obviously, I think when you are in a higher position, kind of like Hathaway and Marina now, you have to judge. You have to make decisions on your own, but you have to decide what to reveal and what not to reveal.
I think ironically, Pope is too childlike to make decisions in that grand scheme.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that.
And also, with at the end of the day, being a leader is being unafraid to be unpopular to a large extent. Because you have to make decisions that might not be popular, and I don't think it's clear that Pope wants to be popular. And I mean, look at how many people he's got.
I think at the end of the day, he can run off on his own if he has to, but he does have a very popular opinion, or he has a lot of sway. Yeah, he does have a lot of sway.
It's interesting what you said about Weaver and him, how with the Masons gone, they kind of cling to each other because then you have Pope trying to cling on to Maggie.
Yeah. Because they all have history with each other. They're all second mass. I mean, Maggie and Pope have a little bit of a deeper history. It's not necessarily a good one, as Maggie reminded to Pope when we first saw them in season 1. They don't have a great history, but they've managed to live together, coexist somewhat. And this has been like one of the first opportunities in a while that we've seen Pope and Maggie isolated having a conversation like this. So it was a really good scene actually between the two of them.
It was, and just the fact of it was a nice reminder also too about how and it served multiple levels from a storytelling perspective of like, okay, the big thing was, right, we found the mole, the case is solved, it's all good. Well, no.
Yeah, Now, what a reveal. I love that reveal, actually.
You know.
You called it like right before, I guess.
Oh, that wonderful for me that I caught it when they wanted me to catch it finally. I'm so genius.
Yeah, well, I mean, who predicted it? It was actually really great. I mean, here's this person who is saving lives. She has been dealing with, every time someone's injured, every time something is going on, she's in the emergency room. Who would think that someone who's saving lives is also the mole? A perfect cover.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, a couple of weeks ago when Hal was it last week? I can't keep track. Last week when Hal was when they finally discovered Hal was the mole. Remember, she was the one doing tests on the parasite. She said she couldn't find it.
Yeah.
So what if maybe that was her being a mole saying, "Oh, I can't find the parasite. It might be gone. Who knows? Nothing I can do. She can't kill the eye worm because she's got like 30 of them inside of her that are stopping her from doing anything like that." And I'm sure if you go back farther, you could figure out more stuff. Like when she was with Anne and Alexis, she obviously must have been the one who told Karen that Anne and Alexis were bolting.
Yeah.
So stuff like that. I'm sure if you look back and start watching everything else and start paying attention to Lourdes, I'm sure you'll see a lot of little clues that would tell you that she's the mole, even though we didn't figure it out till this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so greatly done. I mean, you knew in those moments when she was walking out that she was trouble.
Yeah.
But at that point, we're at episode 7, so it's not. It's a nice reveal at that point. It's not like, oh my God, I know who it is.
And again,
20 seconds later, we find out.
That was so cool. She goes downstairs. She like counts the paces on where she should be laying down, and she positions herself exactly underneath President Hathaway and kills him from the floor below. Poor President Hathaway. We just got used to having him back. Great episode with Stephen. It's Stephen Collins. You killed Stephen Collins. Oh my God. And then he's gone.
Well, two things out of it for me. One's kind of more superficial, but on a story level, it's interesting because now everyone's going to be like, oh, okay, Marina was losing power now that the president was there, because obviously he retains power.
Mm-hmm.
So isn't it convenient for her to have killed him to regain that power? So there's going to be that notion.
There's an interesting theory there. I don't think it flies as much. I don't think someone's that power hungry in this world, dealing with an alien attack so close, the Ishvedi attack or the Ishvedi grid at least closing up within a couple of weeks. I don't think anyone's going to be that power hungry to want to kill the president.
You don't think Pope wouldn't be able to run with a story like that?
Oh, he would, and Weaver and Pope were talking about it, but I just think the more feasible excuse would have been there's still a mole, that Marina's the mole, but not that she wants to get rid of the president so she takes control. I mean,
okay, well that makes sense.
Yeah, but I mean, look, that's the story they're going with. Obviously, suspicion is on Marina right now because we know who the mole is, but nobody else does. Yeah. So suspicion that I've had since week 1 that Marina was the mole is now a lot more relevant, a lot more obvious to Weaver, to Pope, to who knows who else there in Charleston.
Now, how is she able to get away? She was so calm about it.
Yeah.
As she was like, it'd be like me waking up in the morning and getting a cup of coffee. Like you're not, they're snipers, and they could be 500 feet away or whatever, that you hide and you can go off slowly. Like, you're one level down.
Yeah.
You don't think they can go, like, they just know, okay, they're downstairs, now go through the stairs, like, just figure this out. How was she able to get away? It's slightly a plot hole.
That is a little bit of a WTF moment, but again, I mean, think of how obvious or how oblivious we were to Lourdes being the mole, because she's a healer. So
okay, but that was story technique in the way it was being told to us. Obviously that information was withheld, but the fact that they rushed in immediately because that was a pretty big explosion or whatever.
They rushed in upstairs.
Upstairs, yeah. Right? And so they immediately noticed, okay, there's a hole through the ground, so it must have been through the ground. I would have been like, okay, go on the stairs.
Yeah.
You get to the stairs. How many exits,
I would have
does
liked,
she have?
I agree. I would have liked to have seen her get away as opposed to the commercial break. She's just like sauntering off practically. She's just like very, very calm and not in a hurry to
Well,
get
I mean, here's the
anywhere.
thing. You could have. It was an opportunity to do something cool where you had everyone kind of running down the stairs, and she's nonchalant about it, and oh, there's the laundry escape. Whoop, I'm
Yeah,
down
yeah.
and gone, and
No,
that's it. That's all you needed.
yeah. Well, then we come back from a commercial break, and she's in church praying when they tell her that the president died. So it's like she got somehow from the time he got shot, and everyone rushed in, she got away from being one floor directly below to the chapel.
Yeah.
Or a church or wherever she was at. And by the way, that how freaky was that? She's praying, and then the camera goes around, and you just see all the eye worms just hanging out. Like it's such a weird just I can never say this word right. Just
Juxtaposition.
yeah, in a way, a religious motive, like she's praying for somebody, like maybe for the president to heal or something else. Meanwhile, all these little aliens.
You don't think that was a setup for so the news is delivered to her like the president's dead. It's just a nice. I think it's just a cover up rather than like her actually praying.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely a cover up, but still, just the positioning of, just for the sake of story or the writing of it, I just thought it was really an interesting place to put her praying in church when she's the one responsible for killing the president.
Yeah,
and with all those eye worms all over the place, eye bugs all over.
Yeah. So I'm glad we finally found out who the mole is. It's going to be interesting to see where this goes.
Yeah, with now that that's one of the big cliffhangers, I guess. Now we finally know it's Lourdes and the president's dead. What's next?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the notion continues: is this a sinking ship? Can Charlestown continue? We don't know.
Well, as long as the mole is around, they're all still going to be in danger.
Well, there's that. There's Karen. I mean, there's a lot. Yeah, we haven't seen Karen since she did stuff with Hal.
Since her dreams with Hal, more or less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been a while. So we'll see. Eventually, we got 3 more episodes, and we'll obviously talk about that in predictions. But we should also talk about, hey guys, we know you've been listening for the past couple of weeks. We really appreciate it. And for those of you who've been tuning in, I know a lot of you guys have already downloaded Adventures of Serial Buddies on iTunes. It's a movie made by Kevin Undergaro, who he wrote and directed it, produced by Maria Menounos, our 2 co-founders here at AfterBuzz TV. It's the first serial killer comedy of all time. For those of you who haven't yet purchased it, please do so. It really helps us out. It allows us to continue bringing content such as this for free. As great a network as we are, we're like ironically the PBS of all podcasting, especially since we do so many shows. So purchasing Adventures of Serial Buddies really helps us out and continue this adventure of ours. So Adventures of Serial Buddies, serialbuddies.com is the website.
And it's a great movie.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, that's the best reason.
Anyway, so let's switch gears and talk about the Masons. I thought interesting storyline for and kind of debate of tonight. Like they kind of started off, okay, do we, what happens when we find Alexis and Nan? Do we stay or do we go back to Charlestown? What are the pros and cons?
Well, I kind of liked what Ben had to say. I mean, Ben did get ostracized a little bit when he was rescued and they were able to take the harness off. People didn't trust him right away. He was considered a freak. So Alexis coming back, now that everyone knows that she has alien DNA, she'd probably be even much worse off. It's probably better for them to just start, and also Anne running off like that, just the 2 of them putting people into jeopardy. I just thought it made a lot of sense to why they would leave and why the Masons might go with them. They've survived on their own out in the road by themselves as it is, and they're much better fighters now than they were. At least the kids are much better fighters now than they were a couple of seasons ago. So it's completely doable. And going back to another I mean, Hal was the mole, was considered the mole. So Hal's already probably looked at negatively. People like Pope making fun. Remember the whole eye worm defense. And then Ben's still got the harness, so he's still considered a freak to some. And now Alexis. I mean, this family is like, if going back there.
I get that, but all the more reason why if they can kind of overcome that and go back and be accepted, I think it's symbolic. You know, and I think Tom always has kind of understood that. I mean, look at the Liberty Tree. I was going to call it the Tree of Life, but it's really the Liberty Tree. You know, and so I think it just sends an overall positive message of like, hey, you know what? No matter what happens, you know, we're here. We all deserve to be together. And, you know, we're willing to help you guys. And you guys may not accept this right away, but we're going to fight for you.
Yeah.
No matter what.
I agree with you. I mean, obviously, when they said they weren't going to go back, I'm like, what's going to happen? this, you know, they can't just disappear. I mean, how are we going to follow them? Or we're going to follow Charleston?
No, we're going to follow the Picketts are going to be the new Mason family. They're going to go back. And
the Picketts are going to go back instead?
Yeah, and you know, the dad's going to become the president.
And they're going to rob everybody before he becomes president, or
possibly.
But I mean, obviously we want to see them back, but I mean, just think about the environment they're leaving. I mean, they're leaving an environment where Tom thinks Cochise is dead and Hathaway. There is a growing sentiment from Pope's group that these aliens are not to be trusted or worked with, and again, the whole half the family are aliens or have something going on with aliens and you know, look down upon.
But then you also, you know, you have it in your mind that if they don't come back, Weaver's gonna go looking for him. Okay, so then you're losing. You know, you just here's the thing.
Well, I don't think they're thinking that way, but that's a good point.
Tom could be possibly. I mean, the problem is, what message does it send? I mean, you know, you have to come back because you have to come back. I mean, if your whole point is that, you know, everyone's supposed to help and come together to rebuild this, and everyone's efforts are needed and to be counted on, then why is it okay for you to just basically abandon? I mean, Pope talks about wanting to do that, but he hasn't done it. You know, so ultimately he's still a good person, whereas I think if you just give up and leave,
well,
it doesn't show courage.
Yeah, well,
that's not what the Mason family is.
Don't forget the one other aspect that we're overlooking here, and it might be a selfish thing to think this way, but we've been talking the whole season about Tom's struggle between being president and being family man, and having to decide between both of them. So right now, he's making a decision to stand for his family. So it makes sense that he decides to stick together with the family and they just go out on their own. In that sense, it's selfish. It's obviously not thinking about the war, not thinking about the good that his family could be in Charleston. But I mean, that's where he's coming from.
But he separates from his family at the end anyway, which is the ironic part.
I know that doesn't make sense to me, but we'll get into that part when we get to that part.
All right, well, let's talk about the Picketts.
Okay.
So the ambush happens. So it's an interesting, to use a word, juxtaposition. Because you know, they're pretty much pound for pound kind of similar to the Masons.
It's a very similar family, yeah.
You know, and yet, you know, how they survived and the different ideologies, etc. And so,
both their mothers have died.
Yes.
Yeah.
But in two different circumstances, one by the aliens, one by humans.
Exactly.
And so, you know, that's obviously the big deciding factor in how they trust human beings. And obviously the Picketts do not.
Yes, obviously the Picketts do not. Well, it was really interesting seeing them robbed, seeing the Nolans robbed. What did I say? Nolans? The Masons robbed. You know, on their trip, and then taking their horses, taking their food, everything. And then, of course, the Masons aren't going to go quietly with that, so they end up. I love them going to the farm, and everyone. Ben, first of all, could probably single-handedly take down almost everybody just because of his power. But then Matt's involved. Hal's fighting with Uncle Gil, and then Tom gets the father Pickett. I'm not sure if we got his name. But what was really, really interesting about that whole interaction was Uncle Gil gets shot by, of all people, Matt, the youngest kid, who
got too eager.
He got a little too eager. I'm actually one of the things that did shock me is, I mean, I know Hal. It seemed like Hal was in danger. It never really looked to me like 100% like Hal was about to die, but they never really seemed to broach the fact that Matt almost killed somebody. You know, that he was the one who shot. Because I think that's kind of a big move.
It is a big move, and I mean, I think it was more in his reactions in the later part of it. You know, he basically after that had a look of sadness for
Yeah.
the rest of the episode, and he didn't change at all.
I'm just surprised that they didn't go more into that. I would have thought. I get the look. I get seeing his reactions, but I was a little surprised that in a Steven Spielberg family drama that they wouldn't really
Go into
go into that a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly could have played with that. You know, especially when they're talking about, you know, Tom and the father are talking about, you know, human beings are cruel, etc.
Yeah.
And you know, I think they could have had a moment like, hey, you know what? It didn't have to be this way, and look what you've led my son to believe. You know, it doesn't have to be this way, but this is, you know, the reaction that you've caused within him.
Yeah.
You know, and is this what you want for your kids?
Yeah.
Especially your daughter, who, you know, she was the one who kind of saved everything for the Masons. So, and you know, it sucked because you know, so they go up like, hey, come on, let him at least talk to his next of kin.
He gave his word. He
gave his word. But then Gil's like, hey, look under there. There's a gun. So you know, that was really shitty.
Yeah.
It was.
I thought it was a jerk move, but at the same time, do we really, considering what's happened to his wife, to the father's wife, you really expect him to just all of a sudden trust the Masons that much? So what was got really weird was the whole firing line almost turned into a little firing line thing before for the daughter kind of like was able to gave that opportunity for Tom to take advantage again. But that was a little scary, seeing them just willing to shoot everybody down.
But I don't know. I don't think he eventually was going to pull the trigger. As soon as Tom turned around and said, you know, go ahead, do it. I mean, you know, you could have just gotten to the point where, like, Tom put the gun in his mouth and was like, okay, do it. Because I think here's the thing. I think, you know, it catches most people off guard, because then at that point, it's, you know, when you almost want them to do it. Yeah. Now go ahead. Do you have the courage? Because I do. To take the bullet, but do you have the courage to pull the trigger? And, you know, ultimately, he didn't. Well,
we don't know exactly if he didn't, but Tom believes that he didn't. After the fact, he believes that he probably wouldn't have shot him. So, I mean, that's the good that Tom is. Tom sees the good in people. So I don't know. I don't know if he's right. I honestly don't know if he's right.
That's why I'm, you know,
he
I thought they had their. I thought they had their moment.
Yeah.
But you know what? And again, it was interesting how through this whole debate of should the Masons leave Charleston, they're telling those guys, hey, you know what? There's a great place about 20 miles that way.
Yeah.
Where you guys don't have to be in danger.
Well, they don't feel they were in danger. I mean, they said aliens had never bothered them, which has been a bit of a surprise.
And that's all well and good, but what about food? I mean, they're, you know, they're trying to survive, but okay, you're just.
Well, they just don't.
You're not sustained.
They don't trust anyone because of those people that they let in, that were travelers that were trying to get away from the aliens, who eventually tried to rob them. So, incredibly distressful. So, I mean, you know, I'm just saying that's their motivation, obviously. I would imagine that once food completely runs out, they're going to have to change. Yeah. That's what they would have to do. But obviously, they were not in any mood to change at this time. Although they're gone now, so who knows? Maybe they did.
Well, let's talk about that, because so, you know, obviously the danger is, you know, here's some skitters going right for the Pickett house.
Yeah.
And Tom, in amazing fashion, says, you kids go on ahead. I'm going to go that way.
What was he said? He said, if we only thought about our own, if all we care about is our own family, we're no better than them. So that was his excuse for going back, to warn the Picketts and to get them out of there. Yeah. So, but yeah, I also question why leave everyone alone, especially after what I just said, and it really makes sense. Although maybe the answer's right there. I mean, for someone who's choosing family right now over Charleston, to go after Ann and Alexis and then leave Charleston and just go on their own way, which I think in a way is a little bit of a selfish move. I get it, but it's a selfish move. All of a sudden he's saying, let's not be selfish right now. Let me go back and save the family. And he just separates himself from his family to do it. Yeah. So,
well,
interesting.
I think he knows that Charlestown is going to be okay.
Yeah.
you know, without him or his family. I think they'll be all right, at least for the time being, certainly.
Yeah.
You know, he's laid the foundation for, you know, the weapon, the Volm weapon. But with this, the Pickett family, they, you know, they don't know better. And going back to that moment when he did trust him, he didn't complete his quote mission. You know, at least with Charleston, again, it's left in a place that it can sustain and be okay. The Pickett family, they're you know, they're just gonna be eaten, you know, they're gonna be killed, they're gonna slaughtered by the aliens, and so of course he's got to help him. So I can see where duty comes into play.
Sorry, you said
What, duty?
I laughed at duty. I don't know. Sorry.
Why? What do you think of pooping? Come on. Come on.
Sorry.
Grow up.
I try. Honestly, I try.
Anyway, I don't know. I think that's why he did it ultimately. Do you disagree?
No, I kind of agree. I mean, well, he's always conflicted. He's kind of like always stuck between doing what's morally right and standing by his family.
Yeah.
And this was a big decision. Although, again, I mean, especially after what happened, I mean, he separates himself from his family, and he is captured once again by the aliens. So we get to see what happens now with that.
Yeah, that'll be quite interesting. So speaking of that, let's head into predictions.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
Well, we got 3 more episodes left.
Yeah.
Things are gonna change. I don't know. It's gonna be. We didn't get much. Oh, I guess everyone's back at the Volm weapon is complete.
Yeah.
The grid is. What did they say? The grid is complete. The grid is complete, right?
The grid hasn't been turned on yet.
Okay.
But they're about 2 weeks away from the grid getting turned on, and that's why they're trying to rush the weapon to. Yeah, that's what they're doing. The rush with the weapon.
But next week, I think we see the weapon being powered on.
Yes.
Or unless they're previewing all 3 episodes.
That's what they're showing. They're showing what looks like the weapon being powered on. Yeah. Or the grid being powered on.
And the Masons are back in town.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, they didn't make mention of the mole, really.
Well, you know what's interesting? I did want to bring this up because Comic-Con is this week. For anyone who's tuning in, going to San Diego, and Falling Skies is going to have a panel there. They've had one for the past couple of years, and one interesting person that will not be on the panel, which I don't know if this reveals anything, is actually Seychelle Gabriel, who plays Lourdes. So the fact that the mole, which is going to be one of the biggest cliffhangers coming out of today's episode, that people who are going to Comic-Con will
not
want to know.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like they're going to get any answers, at least not from the actress, because she won't be there at Comic-Con. So I don't know if that's revealing, if maybe she's soon to be eliminated or what. But I'll say she gets discovered, and that she's not long for this world of Falling Skies. That's what I'll say.
Interesting. Well, I know you're going, so you know, we're definitely gonna get a nice special segment next time we see Nando.
All this pressure, yeah.
I know.
I'm gonna be so Comic-Con wiped up next Sunday.
It's gonna be great.
Like,
Sarah likes popcorn. That's gonna be amazing.
You knew that already. Sarah Carter likes popcorn. I bet you she does.
But yeah, so 3 more episodes. It's going to be interesting to see where it goes. I mean, the culmination of the season is leading up to this weapon. Obviously, now that we also know all of its dangers. And luckily, though, the mole doesn't know yet what this weapon does. But it's going to be interesting.
Yes.
And then, of course, we got to see Karen. You know, Karen's got to come out in this somehow.
I would think Karen will be. We'll see Karen next week, I'm sure, because Tom's got to be there with her or something. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Then, that's a good point. And then I think Alexis and Anne have to be alive.
Well, they better be alive. I hope they're alive.
This isn't like Walking
Because then
Dead,
it's fruitless. Then it's fruitless. All this work to try and rescue them, and they're dead. I hope not.
Yeah. So I'm sure we'll see that. And you know, I really hope things are on the up and up for this town, because I don't want them going downhill.
Well, with 3 episodes left, I think it's going to be a little more downhill before it goes uphill.
Yeah, unfortunately. But I think we'll end the season on a good note overall.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you guys for listening. Nando, where can they find you?
You could find me on Nandovel at Twitter, Nandovel.
Of course, and he'll be at Comic-Con.
So I'll post some stuff from there.
So make sure to follow him on Twitter so you can follow him at Comic-Con if you're there.
If my phone doesn't die, because its reception always sucks out there.
That's unfortunate. And, of course, follow us here at AfterBuzz TV. That's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that fun stuff. And, of course, AfterBuzzTV.com. Rate, comment, and be sure, if you haven't, which there's only a few of you, I'm sure, Adventures Hero Buddies. Out now. Thank you, guys. Yes. We'll be back next week. And we'll finish out the season strong.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.